You ever worked with somebody and wanted to talk to them about Jesus and thought, man, that's kind of weird. I don't know what to do. I don't want to get, made fun of or yelled at, or just sometimes it's awkward. Today in the studio, I have my friend Cody, and we're going to talk about ministry and maybe give you some tips on how to talk to that person about Christ. So join us next, Man Talk. All right. Good to have you in the studio. How you doing, Cody?
Doing good. Good to be here.
Yeah. So for those that don't know you like I know you, tell everybody what you do. What's your ministry? What's your job?
Yeah, sure. So I have the privilege of working in the conference office as the ministerial director.
Okay.
And basically what that means is I coordinate and help the pastors in their ministry. Mm-hmm. And we also work with elders and deacons and deaconesses in the local churches as well. But it's primarily we're focused on supporting and helping the pastors in their ministry in the churches.
Oh, fantastic. So how long have you functioned in that role?
I've been here about 2 years.
Okay. So before that, were you a pastor?
Yeah, I was pastoring up in northern Michigan in the Petoskey, Sheboygan, Carp Lake district.
Oh man, that's a beautiful area.
It really is.
That is phenomenal. Okay, so you've had a lot of experience in doing ministry, and I think that when you wear that pastor card or that role, then everyone's like, well, of course you have to do this, your job, or you're an expert. But hey, I'm just a guy, I'm working my 9 to 5. And for me, sometimes it's awkward to talk to people about Jesus. What kind of tips would you give someone who's wanting to be a witness, but just it's not natural?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a great question. And in reality, it's not always natural for pastors either.
Okay.
Because they've got...
You mean like you don't just love, like it's just so simple for you?
Some pastors it comes naturally, but others, they try to figure out how are they going to talk to their neighbor or the person they meet on the street, right, and things like that. I think it's really common for all of us that how do we start those conversations?
Right.
And how do we not just start them, but how do we lead them along in that?
Yeah, because you don't want it to be awkward, and you don't want to look like a slick oil salesman or anything like that. I mean, there's an insecurity. Maybe that's not the right. There's a vulnerability to be like, hey, God has changed my life, and I think He could change yours too. What do you do? What's your move when you're trying to talk to someone about Christ?
I think it's different in every situation, but for me, it always begins with prayer.
Okay.
And so if there's people that I'm wanting to reach, I'm always praying for them. Mm-hmm. And what I've found is, if I intentionally pray each day, Lord, give me opportunities to reach this one. Maybe it's my neighbor that I've started to meet when I walk the dog or something like that, mm-hmm, or whoever it can be. I start praying for them and say, Lord, we pray for those opportunities. And it's amazing to me, when we start praying for them, God starts working, mm-hmm, to give you opportunities. What's interesting is if you're asking God to do it, and then like it sounds like you're saying all of a sudden they're in your lane like they weren't before. So you're walking your dog and you're going by this house, and then all of a sudden they're getting their mail at the same time, and you're not thinking that, oh, what a coincidence. You're probably thinking at that time like, hey, this is the Lord giving me an opportunity. Yeah. I think it's two things. One is the Lord is working out those things to be able to make your paths to cross. Yeah. The other thing is you've been praying about it, and so you're intentionally thinking about, okay, when I see somebody, maybe I'll have an opportunity to share with them. So I think it goes both ways there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, once you have those opportunities, then it's, what do you say in those? I mean, like you said, he's getting the mail, or they're walking their dog, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that's where the prayer really helps as well, because every situation is totally different.
Right, because I don't want to sound like a dork. Hey, what you doing? Getting your mail? And they're like looking at you like, yeah, idiot, I got the hey. Yeah, so like I said, like, I know it sounds awkward, but like your moves, like to, because there is I often connect it to where when I was single, person. I remember the first time I met my wife, my tongue was tied and I said some of the dumbest things I've ever said in my life. And I wonder if there's somewhat of a connection, spiritually speaking, when you're just trying to become their friend, you're trying to have that opportunity. There's just it could be awkward.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's, first of all, just try to become their friend. There's a saying that's only friends win friends.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
And so you've got to become a friend in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And there's people that walk through the church doors and are just like, I studied the Sabbath and I want, that happens.
Yeah.
But they still need a friend too.
Right.
Their spiritual interest comes before the friendship.
Yeah.
But most people, the friendship comes either simultaneously or before the spiritual interest.
Do you think there's a difference between meeting someone like a neighbor that you don't know? Is there you found like a different approach than if you talk to maybe someone you already do know, a friend, or maybe a coworker? Is that a different mindset that I have? Because if I get turned down, right, like, then is it we're still working together? We're still. Like that again, I could keep going back to insecurity of what if they think I'm crazy for talking about Christ?
Yeah, sure. I don't know that there's really a big difference if we're just approaching it as a friend and we have something that as the opportunity arises, we want to share with you because we think it'll make your life better.
Right.
And so now you can take a longer term. So you can be dropping seeds here or there, or be asking questions that will lead them to ask questions, whatever it might be. But really it comes down to getting to know them and then seeing, is there some connection that I can make with this person that would help them advance in their spiritual walk.
I feel like too that some of that insecurity, I've often thought that those aren't the fruits of the Spirit, fear, shame, all those types of things. And there are other topics in my life that if I go on record saying I'm for, to use like maybe a sporting team, like I'm a Detroit Lions fan, and everyone's like they're losers, which they are, but perennial. I'm not like, oh no, we can't be friends now because I told you I was a Lions fan. Or I like Olive Garden, and that person says I hate Italian food. I'm like, oh no, we'll never talk again. So I sometimes I think it's almost it's sinister how those thoughts get in your mind. Like I can't say something because I'm so afraid that it'll ruin everything.
Yeah,
I think it's nothing there. So.
I think you're right because we have differences of opinion all the time, and it doesn't affect our relationship.
Right, exactly.
Our families. There's people that hate this food, and we love this food.
Right.
But we live in the same house, and we might eat it, and they might not, and it's fine.
Yeah. So what happens when I talk to that coworker or family member about Jesus, and then they go, "Look, I really don't want to talk to you about that anymore," and now I feel like crushed, like, oh, I'm super gun shy. What do you recommend for me as someone who now feels like I'm a failure at that?
You can't win everybody, and we have to recognize that we can't take it personal when somebody is rejecting something. Mm-hmm. So, when the Lord says to Samuel, "We'll give them a king," and he's all downcast, and the Lord says, "They're not rejecting you; they're rejecting me."
Yeah, that's good.
And so we have to remember it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about God.
Yeah.
And we have something that, maybe they're not open right now. That's okay. They might be open in a week or so. We don't know. Or maybe it'll be 10 years. Or maybe they're not going to be open. We don't know. But we can only say, live our Christian witness and share what Jesus has done for us. And, I think that if there's a spiritual interest there, one of the best things we can share is how God has impacted us personally. Mm-hmm. So not so much, hey, do you know the seventh day is the Sabbath? It is, and there's a time to share that. We need to give that Bible study. But in John 9:25, we find the blind man who was blind says, whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But one thing I know, I was blind. Mm-hmm. Now I see. Yeah. Nobody can argue with that. They're like,
right.
Well, no, they can argue theology. They can disagree. But it's like, no, this is what Jesus did for me.
Right.
And so if we say, you know what, I struggled with whatever, but now I have so much peace in my heart and life, and it's because of I spend time with Jesus every day. They can't argue with that. They can say, well, I don't want to do that, but they're not like, well, you shouldn't do that. I mean, no, this is our experience, and it's a blessing to us, and that's what we're sharing.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm not really sure how to get involved at the local church, and I think I do. I'm not sure I want to. What kind of recommendations would you have for me if I'm just a guy trying to possibly get more involved? I don't want to preach a sermon. I'm not singing. Is there any other kind of ministry, or what do I do there?
There's so many different needs in a church, and we're all different. We have different likes and gifts and things like that. And so look for what could be done in the church. We tend to think, well, you got to go up front, you got to preach, or you got to teach Sabbath school. And most of us are like, yeah, that's not for us. So we'll just sit in the pews. But one of the most important things we can do is just be friendly to people that come. Be looking out for people that come, especially if they're new people. Go talk to them behind the scenes. Or it can be...
So that's ministry?
That is absolutely ministry.
I'm going to lead out on the being nice ministry. That's actually a pretty good idea if somebody wants to start it. That's good, because I feel like sometimes when people come into any space, whether it's church or any type of space, when they come in, you acknowledge that they're there kind of by giving them the nod or something, but everyone's afraid to talk to people because they think that it won't be well received. But the flip side of that is someone comes into maybe a church service or whatever, and they're like, hey, we were here for an hour and a half and no one talked to us. Yeah. And then they interpret that as, no one likes us. And
it's just visiting with people in the foyer, wherever, is just huge. Yeah. And not just, we have our wonderful greeters that are trying to greet people when they come in the door. And normally they say, Happy Sabbath, and give a bulletin or something like
exactly.
that. And that's good. We're glad that. But I want you to think of somebody that comes in off the street and they're greeted with Happy Sabbath. Yeah. It's not my birthday. Right. They're trying to figure this out. Right. And then they get this piece of paper, and then they have to decipher this piece of paper. Right. Connection doesn't begin with Happy Sabbath. It might begin with Happy Sabbath, but that's not connection.
No, yeah.
And so, if you see a visitor come in, or maybe just somebody that hasn't been there for a while, or anybody can be, but you go, hey, how's your week going? And just start talking to them on a conversation level. Yeah. And then they're going to feel much more connected rather than just Happy Sabbath.
That's really interesting that you should say that, because sometimes I think people, they have only certain activities are ministry. But you really look at how Christ functioned and what his methods were. He was all about connecting with them as a person, becoming their friend, and, just trying to meet their needs, know what's going on in their life. And that was really, really effective for him. Okay, so here's another one. What if I'm wanting to get training? I didn't go to church school, or maybe I went to church school, but it wasn't, I don't feel like I'm equipped, and I really like to learn more about the Bible, maybe how to share my faith, or share what I learn about the Bible. Maybe I'm even interested in looking at something where I'm putting a lot, if not a lot more hours in my week, potentially a career change. Is there any types of opportunities or paths for me to get that type of training here in Michigan?
Absolutely. We want every one of our churches to be a training center where we get trained in ministry. And so one of the best things, like we just talked about, get involved in the local church, whatever that looks like. Use your gifts and your talents. Can be talking to people. Ask the pastor, ask some of the elders, what are some needs of the church? What are some things that I might be able to help with in the church? So, that engagement in the local church is just really, really key to all ministry, wherever, just whether we're whether we're going to work our 40, 50, 60-hour a week job and be involved in the church, or whether we're praying and saying, God might be leading me to another direction, to a career change or something like that. So first and foremost to me is get involved in that local church setting. Be there whenever you can and just help out. Church work bee. Helping to pull weeds in the flower garden, cutting down some overgrown limbs, talking to people that come on Sabbath. Another excellent thing that you can do is pray for God to send you a Bible study. Because one of the best ways to learn the Bible is to study the Bible with somebody else. They say statistically that you remember like 5% of what you hear and 10% of what you read or something like that. And 75% of what you share with somebody else. So if you want to learn the Bible, sharing Bible studies with someone is one of your best things that you can do.
So if I wanted to talk, give a Bible study on how someone could be saved, wouldn't it be weird though? I mean, like I just studied it a couple of days ago and now I'm giving it. I'm not an expert. What if they ask me a question I don't know?
You know what? That's a great question. And it normally happens. I get asked questions I don't know.
Oh, okay.
So it's all the time.
Really? You do too?
Absolutely.
Wow. Well, then I don't feel so bad.
I had a teacher one time that he said that he was just converted and he knew 5 Bible verses.
Oh.
And those were all that he knew.
Yeah.
And so he was out and he was trying to share and somebody asked him a question.
Right.
And it was, that's one of the Bible verses I know. And he shared the Bible verse. They asked another question. I know that Bible verse. And he shares it. He said they went through all 5 Bible verses that he knew. He only knew 5.
Right.
And at the end they said, you really know your Bible so well.
Thanks.
He knew 5 Bible verses.
And we need to end the study. You'll learn 5 more.
Yeah. And so it's, God will use what we know.
Yeah.
But you know what? Somebody asks us a question and we don't know the answer to it. That is not a problem. So you know what? That's a really great question.
Right.
I'm going to have to study that. And I'm going to get back with you on that.
Yeah.
And they're going to respect you rather than if you try to muddle through some answer that really doesn't make sense to you or them or anybody else.
Yeah.
And so, hey, I mean, I've been all the time it happens. And you just say, look, I'll get back with you. I don't know. Even I can't figure it out. We'll pray about it and try to work on it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. Okay. I got to ask one more question to you because I'm being the youth guy. I'm a young person and I'm not really connected in my church right now. But I want to help. I want to make a difference in this world for Christ. What's the first thing I do?
So you're not really connected with the church?
No, I mean, so let me just give you my story as a 50-year-old, but let me just give you a scenario. I go to church when I'm around. I usually sit there and I'm just there. It's not necessarily mean to me. They're not rude. I mean, I'm just there, but there's not a whole lot going on with me. I don't want to say the church is lame because I am the church, so that would mean I'm lame. But I want to do something, but there just doesn't seem like I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how I would be accepted, or what's my first move?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is even before looking for that greater connection with the church is try to spend some quality time with the Lord each day. And spend that time in Bible study and in prayer. And that's going to connect us with the Lord, first of all. And then when you look at in your church, maybe there's not much going on for you. Maybe you don't know maybe you don't fit in with anybody per se.
By the way, I'm the only youth in the church. Like there's one, it's me. So that's the awkwardness of it.
Yeah. I figured that. And you know what? Youth don't only have to be involved in youth ministry to be involved in ministry.
Yeah.
youth can be involved in any ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's not much going on, but same as, the 50-year-old guy that's working the factory job or whatever, look and say, is there something I can do to help in this situation? And you know what? I don't know any churches that would say, you want to help? No, we don't need help.
Right. If there is, should they call you and tell maybe, you? And then you're the head guy, so you might make a phone call.
Maybe it'd be helpful for us to know that if there's a church that
Did you tell them that? Type of thing.
So it's find some niche, some spot that you can make a difference.
Yeah.
That might be, you know what? Maybe there's no youth, but maybe you want to help in the kids class. Maybe you don't. That's okay too. Maybe you want to help in the AV area. Maybe you want to just talk to the pastor and say, Pastor, this is my situation. What can I do? We all have such different talents that it's not like there's a one-size-fits-all, other than pray, look, I want to be used. And then look for those opportunities to be used that God will have and create for us. I talked about giving Bible studies. I was teaching one time at a school. It was in a different country, and the school was in English, but they spoke a different language in the community. And I taught about giving Bible studies. And I had a student, and I said, hey, you want a Bible study? Pray for Bible studies. When I used to be a Bible worker, we would have I would try to have around 15 scheduled Bible studies a week, something like that.
Wow.
And sometimes it'd go up and sometimes it'd go down. But I found that if I didn't have enough, I would start praying and say, Lord, send me some Bible studies. Now there's other stuff I was doing to try to get them, but pretty soon I'd have to stop praying that because I'd be getting too many Bible studies at that point. So I shared that with them. Here's this young person going to school in a country that doesn't speak the language that the school is in, what he's conversant in. He started praying, and the Lord opened up the door for a neighbor of that school to him to start giving Bible studies, and he was baptized because he started praying and saying, Lord, what can I do even in this situation where I am? Now, obviously, we speak the language here. That's not the issue. But what I'm trying to say here is whatever the obstacles are, God can surmount those obstacles if we're really desirous of having those obstacles being surmounted in our lives.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think of, was it John Knox who said, give me Scotland or I die?
Yeah.
I really do think that as men today, if we wanted to lead someone to Jesus more than anything, that it just seems logical that God would want that too.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, Lord, help me save a soul. No. Like, that doesn't even make any logical sense.
Yeah.
And I think what we have to do is we have to overcome all of those things that, again, the enemy puts into our mind to tell us that we're not able or whatever. But
and use what you have.
Yeah.
So if you like to go out ice fishing in the winter,
Yeah.
talk to the other guys that are out there ice fishing.
Right.
And look for those opportunities. You don't just have to be sitting in the hut there.
Yeah.
Maybe you can have a Bible study while you're watching the lines.
Right, exactly. On being a fisherman of men. Yeah.
So whatever it is that you connect with,
You're right.
and that you're interested in, there's other people that are too that need the gospel.
Amen.
Use those interest and gifts and to be looking for those opportunities of people that you can share with.
Yeah. Good. Well, hey, that's this episode of Man Talk, and I just want to leave you this challenge. Better than any action hero you've ever watched or read about, there's no greater hero than someone that saves someone's life for eternity. Mm-hmm. And I really do believe that God is calling you to do that. And to be men who are fearless. I don't care if you make fun of me. I don't care what is said or done to me. I am going to do what God has called me to do. I'm going to be a soldier, and this is how I'm going to fight this week. I'm going to pray that God gives me someone to witness to this week. I'm going to pray that God gives me something to do, whether it's at church or in my community. But at the end of the day, I want to be all in for Christ. And, if that's your desire, pray for that, as Pastor Cody has said, and he'll give you those opportunities. And so I'm excited. And if something happens and you want to share that testimony, put it in the comments or contact us. We'd love to hear from you and pray for you, because I don't think we have a lot of time left.
Yeah.
And I want to be faithful in the time that we have. So, okay, well, hey, that was Man Talk. Remember 3 things: love God, love everybody, and duct tape, it fixes everything. Thanks so much for watching. God bless.